Pluto revives our essential selves, and in doing so, begins the process of shedding the chrysalis that has allowed us to mature as we transition into a new state of consciousness. This process can be difficult to complete because a part of us is terrified of the unknown. Due to this fear, we remain inside the chrysalis, which with time becomes outdated, and sooner or later, because it didn't come out when it was supposed to, parts of our being suffer some kind of corruption. And by corruption I mean certain atrophy. Sounds ugly, right? Well, it's not for nothing that Pluto is related to what's deteriorated, to what's rotten. However, it's not Pluto that rots. What rots is not surrendering fully to the transformation process, so our self is corrupted along the way. But who can blame us? There are no transformation schools, especially during the first years of life. What is the reason for so much difficulty, of so much guilt, shame, and fear? In my opinion, we are programmed to evolve. The ability to reconstruct our essential geometry is a human quality that it seems we have come to develop and that is closely linked to free will. In fact, Pluto activates our compulsions, that is, the instinctive behaviors that arise almost automatically. Humans have to learn to get off of that ancestral egg that envelops us as soon as we are born, and that in some way arises to keep intact the geometry of our essential being. This is where the rebirth attributed to Pluto comes from. The question is, we will dare to spread our wings and fly into the unknown, or we will prefer to stay inside the chrysalis, protected forever? Taking into account the symbology of Pluto, evolving is a decision. In any case, the chrysalis also evolves in a certain way. What at first were the rules of our parents later becomes the rules of the government or of established religion. I mention this because it relates to Pluto in Capricorn. We can live forever inside the chrysalis, but if we do, we will never know what our true potential is. In Capricorn, Pluto activates the internal authority in each one of us. Now the fight begins between getting out or staying inside the chrysalis. Staying inside means eternal childhood. Pluto becomes the external authority that exercises power over us, and we comply with what this authority asks of us. As a result, and unconsciously, the most immature state of Cancer, the opposite sign of Capricorn, is activated within us. We become overly emotional, moody, insecure, and sometimes even demeaning in our dealings with others. Other times, we feel trapped in obligations that don't really correspond to our personal interests, accumulating a great feeling of powerlessness that often remains suppressed from our consciousness. If we decide to come out of the chrysalis, we embark on regenerating internal authority, making our own decisions, and becoming the CEOs of our own lives. That's the real personal power we develop when Pluto transits Capricorn. Step by step, we open our own path through self-discipline, which is always accompanied by the joy of following, with tenacity, the true goals of our own being. How does this translate when Pluto in Capricorn transits the first house? In the first house, our evolutionary process seeks the regeneration of personal power. This means that we are going to experience everything that I have just mentioned in our own identity. We get personal power when we manage to connect with our internal authority, but not to rule or control others, but, as I said before, to become our own CEOs. The first house is completely and correctly individualistic. It is about oneself. Any challenge or experience of oppression we have been through has been aimed at discovering our inner strength. When Capricorn is our rising sign, the transit of Pluto leads us to incarnate those personality traits that have not been fully developed, like our responsibility, our commitment to achievement, and our ambition. But if we stay inside the chrysalis and hide our emotions, our motivations, and even our desires, the internal pain can become very strong, and in the end, the excess poison that we carry inside is released to the outside. The advice is to associate with individuals who accept us as we are, and in this way, we regain the space to express our authenticity. When we begin to integrate the parts of us that are industrious, serious, and ambitious, we will feel that we are more authentic, real, and stronger. And as if by magic, our evolutionary path, symbolized by the natal position of Pluto, also takes a step forward. So, when Pluto transits Capricorn in the first house, pay attention when you follow a tradition, a set of rules and morals that don't really belong to you. The great fear of Pluto in Capricorn lies in being irresponsible if one doesn't follow the protocol. Investigate within yourself where that belief comes from. You will see that it's the product of a subjective vision. In fact, you are the leader of your own reality. In Aquarius, Pluto activates our individual uniqueness. Will we dare to be ourselves, or we will seek to amalgamate with our peers? If we choose the latter, we are keeping ourselves inside the chrysalis, and we already know what happens when we stay inside for too long. If not, go back to the beginning of the video and listen once again the evolutionary process of Pluto. There is a reason we don't want to leave the chrysalis. Generally, the reasons come from unpleasant experiences that have inhibited our spontaneity. If Aquarius is our rising sign, then these inhibitions have to do with something that makes us different from the status quo. Pluto's transit activates our essential geometry, and with it brings experiences that differentiate us even more from conventional reality. What hurts is not our sense of self, but the artificial mask that we have created to hide it. That mask is cold, it doesn't feel, and it can become so cerebral that it forgets the warmth of life. If our ascendant is in Capricorn, then we are already used to identity crisis. Our mask is breaking apart, and perhaps an internal light can already be seen through the cracks. Although now, with Pluto in Aquarius, we begin to feel an urgency to free ourselves from any foreign social convention that we still carry in our behavior. Pluto's passage through Capricorn may have provided us with a method to do so. And if we haven't found it, we still have 23 months to do so. But what happens if our rising sign is in the first degrees of Aquarius? In this case, Pluto comes from its passage through the 12th house, and the good news is that we have survived it. The transit of Pluto in the 12th house awakens within us a deep feeling of grief. Irrational fears can lead us to self-sabotage. When Pluto transited in the 12th house for so many years, we'd had the chance to take a long, deep look at our most terrifying fantasies, the ones that can include self-sacrifice born of duty. But who says that they are really fantasies? The 12th house connects us with the collective unconscious. With Pluto in this position, we are able to connect with parallel realities that vibrate at the same frequency as us. But whatever we connect with, that dream world contains a lot of information for our own evolution. Earlier, I mentioned that Pluto in Capricorn activates our inner authority. In the 12th house, that inner authority makes us hyper-realistic when it comes to surrendering to the world of the unconscious. Capricorn in the 12th house provides us with the self-discipline necessary to walk pragmatically in the shadows. Having the god of the underworld trigger our unconscious fears has given us the courage to address them in a constructive way. At least, that's the gift of this Pluto transit. So, during the next 23 months, as Pluto conjuncts our ascendant in Aquarius, we are going to feel very strongly all the masks we have used to not stand out, not appear different, and be accepted by our community. But there is no need to worry that much, because the transit of Saturn through the 12th house has prepared us for this moment. The main thing is that you trust yourself and that you free yourself from any social convention that does not belong to your own nature. Every time you feel the desire to fight or act cruelly with someone, before acting, listen to your emotions and dive into yourself, looking for what is the emotion, what is the memory, what is the trigger for this reaction. Generally, there is a frightened child who feels oppressed in a reality that does not understand him or her. Now is a good time for you to provide him or her with the validation they've been longing for. When Aquarius Rising is fully integrated, it doesn't even say, "I am what I am." It just is, but not out of meaningless rebellion, but out of the conviction that their true self is much more interesting than a grey imitation born of social conventions. With this Pluto transit, the potential for individual genius is at your fingertips. Also, the natal position of your Pluto will thank you. So, when Pluto transit Aquarius in the 1st house, pay attention when you become so cerebral that you can no longer connect with your passions. The great fear of Pluto in Aquarius is to become someone who has no social support. Listen to your inner voice and go your own way. You were born to be yourself. That will make you feel more alive than ever.